Listen carefully. The quality of your life is not determined by your circumstances. It is determined by your ability to control yourself within those circumstances. Most people spend years trying to change the world around them while remaining slaves to their own impulses. They wait for motivation. They wait for confidence. They wait for the perfect moment. But freedom does not belong to those who wait. Freedom belongs to those who act when they don't feel like it. In this audiobook, you will learn a simple truth. Every area of your life improves when you learn to master yourself instead of your circumstances. And if you fail to learn that lesson, life will teach it to you the hard way. Chapter 1. Stop negotiating with yourself. Most people think they have a motivation problem. They don't. Most people have a negotiation problem. Every morning, they negotiate. Every workout becomes a debate. Every goal becomes a discussion. Every responsibility becomes a question. Should I do it now? Should I wait? Maybe tomorrow. Maybe later. Maybe when I feel ready. And that is where they lose. Not when they fail. Not when life becomes difficult. Not when obstacles appear. They lose the moment they begin negotiating with themselves. Understand this clearly. Your life is the result of thousands of decisions. But more importantly, it is the result of thousands of moments when you either acted or hesitated. The difference between success and failure is often measured in seconds. A decision is made. An action is required. One person moves. Another person negotiates. The first grows stronger. The second grows weaker. The moment you negotiate, you weaken. The moment you act, you strengthen. That's the key. Most people believe discipline is about forcing yourself to suffer. It is not. Discipline is eliminating unnecessary conversations with yourself. It is deciding once and acting immediately. You wake up, the alarm rings. A disciplined person gets up. An undisciplined person begins negotiating. 5 more minutes. Maybe tomorrow. I deserve a break. I didn't sleep enough. The excuses change. The result never does. You stay exactly where you are. You have a choice. You can listen to the voice that seeks comfort, or you can listen to the voice that seeks growth. Both voices exist inside you. The one that wins is the one you obey. Think about an athlete preparing for competition. Do you believe elite performers wake up every day excited to train? Of course not. Some days they are tired. Some days they are frustrated. Some days they want to stay in bed just like everyone else. The difference is not motivation. The difference is action. They understand a powerful truth. Feelings are temporary. Standards are permanent. They do not ask, how do I feel today? They ask, what needs to be done today? That's the key. The disciplined mind focuses on duty. The undisciplined mind focuses on comfort. One creates freedom. The other creates regret. The moment you negotiate, you weaken. The moment you act, you strengthen. Look at successful entrepreneurs. People see the finished result, the business, the income, the influence. What they do not see are the countless moments of uncertainty, the days when nothing seemed to work, the nights filled with doubt, the mornings when quitting felt easier. Yet they continued. Not because they felt confident, not because success was guaranteed, because they acted before certainty arrived. Most people wait for confidence. Winners create confidence through action. Read that again. Most people wait for confidence. Winners create confidence through action. You don't need their permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need guarantees. You need movement. The world rewards action, not intention, not potential, not excuses. Action. Many people spend years collecting information, reading books, watching videos, making plans, taking notes, learning more, preparing more, waiting more, and still nothing changes. Why? Because knowledge without action becomes another form of procrastination. It becomes another negotiation. You tell yourself you are preparing, but often you are simply avoiding. You have a choice. Act now, or keep preparing forever. The results will expose the truth. It is not about knowledge. It is about discipline. It is not about talent. It is about discipline. It is not about intelligence. It is about discipline. Discipline closes the gap between knowing and doing. That gap is where most dreams die. Think about your own life. How many opportunities disappeared because of hesitation? How many goals remained unfinished because you waited for the perfect time? How many promises did you make to yourself and then break? Be honest. The answer is probably more than you want to admit. And that honesty matters, because transformation begins when excuses end. The good news is this: discipline is not something you are born with. It is something you build, one decision at a time, one action at a time, one promise kept at a time. Every time you act immediately, you strengthen your identity. Every time you hesitate, you strengthen the habit of hesitation. Every action casts a vote. Every choice shapes your future self. The person you become is being built right now. Not next year, not next month, not tomorrow, right now. The moment you negotiate, you weaken. The moment you act, you strengthen. That's the key. So here is a practical challenge. Stop giving yourself options where none are needed. If you plan to exercise, exercise. If you plan to study, study. If you plan to make the call, make the call. If you plan to start the project, start the project. No debate, no discussion, no negotiation. The decision has already been made. Your only responsibility is execution. Many people think freedom comes from having unlimited choices, but true freedom comes from eliminating the choices that destroy you. The disciplined person does not constantly ask what they feel like doing. They ask what must be done, and then they do it. Again and again, day after day, until action becomes automatic, until excellence becomes normal, until discipline becomes identity. Because eventually something remarkable happens. You stop fighting yourself. You stop arguing with yourself. You stop waiting for motivation. You become the kind of person who acts. And when you become that person, everything changes. Your confidence changes. Your habits change. Your results change. Your future changes. Because every area of your life improves when you learn to control yourself instead of your circumstances. Remember this lesson. The battle is rarely outside of you. The battle is within you. The battle begins the moment responsibility appears. Will you negotiate or will you act? You have a choice. The moment you negotiate, you weaken. The moment you act, you strengthen. Master that principle, and you take the first step toward freedom. But before freedom comes another challenge. The challenge that traps millions of people without them even realizing it. They call it comfort, and they mistake it for happiness. Let's continue. Chapter 2. Comfort is the enemy disguised as a friend. Comfort is one of the most dangerous forces in your life, not because it looks dangerous, because it doesn't. Comfort doesn't arrive as an enemy. It arrives as a reward. It arrives as relief. It arrives as something you think you deserve. And that is exactly why so many people become trapped by it. Nobody wakes up and decides to ruin their future. Nobody plans to become weaker. Nobody intends to waste their potential. Instead, they choose comfort. Again, and again, and again. One comfortable decision rarely changes a life. Thousands of comfortable decisions do. That's the key. The greatest threat to your future is not failure. It is comfort. Failure teaches lessons. Failure builds resilience. Failure forces growth. Comfort often does the opposite. Comfort encourages stagnation. Comfort rewards inaction. Comfort convinces you that staying where you are is good enough, and eventually you begin to believe it. Comfort gives pleasure today and pain tomorrow. Remember that. Comfort gives pleasure today and pain tomorrow. The workout you skip feels comfortable. The consequences do not. The difficult conversation you avoid feels comfortable. The damaged relationship does not. The opportunity you ignore feels comfortable. The regret that follows does not. Every major regret begins the same way. Someone chooses comfort over progress. You have a choice. You can pursue growth, or you can pursue comfort. You cannot fully pursue both. Growth requires discomfort, always. There is no exception. Think about physical health. Nobody becomes strong by remaining comfortable. Nobody develops endurance by avoiding challenge. Nobody transforms their body by choosing the easiest option every day. Strength is built through resistance. Growth is built through resistance. Discipline is built through resistance. Yet millions of people spend years avoiding the very discomfort that would improve their lives. They know they should exercise, but comfort says tomorrow. They know they should eat better, but comfort says one more cheat meal. They know they should take care of themselves, but comfort says later. Then years pass, energy declines, health deteriorates, confidence disappears, and suddenly they wonder what happened. What happened is simple. Comfort happened. Comfort gives pleasure today and pain tomorrow. That's the key. The same principle applies to opportunity. How many dreams have died because someone chose comfort? How many businesses were never started? How many books were never written? How many careers were never pursued? How many lives remained average because fear disguised itself as comfort? The opportunity appears. The risk feels uncomfortable. The challenge feels uncomfortable. The uncertainty feels uncomfortable. So people retreat, not because they lack ability, because they seek comfort. Years later, they look back and realize something painful. The discomfort they avoided was temporary. The regret lasted much longer. You have a choice. temporary discomfort, or long-term regret. Choose wisely. Many people believe courage means feeling fearless. That is not true. Courage means acting despite discomfort. The successful entrepreneur feels uncertainty. The athlete feels exhaustion. The leader feels pressure. The creator feels doubt. The disciplined person does not wait for those feelings to disappear. They move forward anyway. You don't need their permission. You don't need perfect certainty. You don't need guarantees. You need the willingness to be uncomfortable. Because every meaningful achievement requires discomfort. Every single one. Comfort is attractive because it promises immediate relief. Discipline is powerful because it delivers long-term rewards. One focuses on today, the other builds tomorrow. Comfort gives pleasure today and pain tomorrow. Discipline gives discomfort today and freedom tomorrow. Read that again. Comfort gives pleasure today and pain tomorrow. Discipline gives discomfort today and freedom tomorrow. That is one of the most important lessons in this entire audiobook. Look at relationships. Comfort damages relationships too. Many people avoid difficult conversations because they feel uncomfortable. They avoid honesty. They avoid accountability. They avoid vulnerability. For a moment, comfort wins. Conflict is avoided. Tension is delayed. Everything seems easier, but eventually the relationship weakens. Resentment grows. Distance increases. Trust disappears. Why? Because comfort was chosen over truth, and truth often requires discomfort. The strongest relationships are not built by people who avoid difficult conversations. They are built by people willing to face them. That's the key. Discipline is not only physical. Discipline is emotional. Discipline is relational. Discipline is spiritual. Discipline means doing what is necessary even when it feels uncomfortable, especially when it feels uncomfortable. Now think about your daily habits. How much of your life is controlled by comfort? Be honest. How often do you delay action because you don't feel like it? How often do you avoid responsibility because something easier is available? How often do you trade long-term success for short-term relief? These questions matter because your future is hidden inside your daily choices, not your intentions, not your dreams, your choices. You have a choice. Every single day, comfort or growth, comfort or progress, comfort or freedom. The choice repeats itself constantly, and every choice carries consequences. The disciplined person understands this. They stop asking, what feels easiest? They start asking, what creates the best future? That question changes everything. When you begin making decisions based on your future rather than your feelings, your life transforms. Slowly at first, then dramatically. Your health improves. Your confidence improves. Your finances improve. Your relationships improve. Not because life becomes easier, because you become stronger. It is not about comfort. It is about discipline. It is not about convenience. It is about discipline. It is not about feeling good right now. It is about discipline. And discipline eventually creates something comfort never can. Freedom. The freedom to trust yourself. The freedom to pursue bigger goals. The freedom to face challenges without fear. The freedom to become the person you are capable of becoming. That freedom must be earned. And the price is discomfort. Fortunately, discomfort is not your enemy. Discomfort is your teacher. Discomfort reveals weakness. Discomfort develops strength. Discomfort exposes limits. Discomfort expands limits. The people who grow the most are not the people who avoid discomfort. They are the people who learn to welcome it, not because they enjoy suffering, because they understand what suffering produces: growth, strength, resilience, character, freedom. Comfort promises safety. Discipline delivers power. Comfort promises ease. Discipline delivers transformation. Comfort gives pleasure today and pain tomorrow. Discipline gives discomfort today and freedom tomorrow. Never forget that, because every area of your life improves when you stop chasing comfort and start pursuing growth. The person who constantly seeks comfort becomes weaker. The person who consistently embraces challenge becomes stronger. And strength creates options. Strength creates confidence. Strength creates freedom. You are building one of those futures right now with every decision you make. So ask yourself one final question. Are you choosing comfort or are you choosing growth? You have a choice, and that choice determines everything. Master comfort, and you move one step closer to mastering yourself. But there is another battle waiting for you, a battle even more dangerous because it happens inside your own mind. The external world is not your greatest obstacle. Your thoughts are. Let's continue. Chapter 3, Control your mind or it will control you. There is a battle taking place every single day. Most people never see it. They think their biggest problems are outside of them, their job, their finances, their circumstances, other people, bad luck, difficult situations. But the greatest battle is not outside of you. It is inside of you. It is the battle for control of your own mind. And if you do not control your mind will control you. That's the key. Many people live as prisoners without realizing it. Not prisoners of circumstances, prisoners of thoughts. A negative thought appears. They believe it. Fear appears. They obey it. Doubt appears. They surrender to it. Anxiety appears. They follow wherever it leads. And little by little, their thoughts become dictators rather than advisors. Understand this clearly. Just because you think something does not mean it is true. Just because you feel something does not mean you must obey it. Just because a thought enters your mind does not mean it deserves control over your life. You are not every thought you think. Remember that. You are not every thought you think. The disciplined person understands this. The undisciplined person does not. The disciplined person observes thoughts. The undisciplined person becomes them. There is a difference, a massive difference. One creates freedom, the other creates suffering. Think about how often your mind tries to protect you from discomfort. You decide to pursue a goal. Immediately, the mind produces excuses. What if you fail? What if people judge you? What if you're not good enough? What if it doesn't work? What if you're wasting your time? Notice something. The mind often generates problems before they even exist. That's because the mind seeks safety. The mind seeks certainty. The mind seeks comfort. But growth requires uncertainty. Growth requires risk. Growth requires action despite doubt. You have a choice. You can obey every fearful thought, or you can move forward anyway. The quality of your life depends on that decision. You are not every thought you think. That's the key. Consider negative self-talk. Many people speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to another person. They make one mistake. They call themselves a failure. They experience one setback. They call themselves weak. They encounter one obstacle. They convince themselves they are incapable. And then they wonder why their confidence disappears. Your mind listens to what you repeatedly tell it. Your identity is shaped by your internal conversation. If your thoughts constantly attack you, eventually your performance suffers. Your energy suffers. Your courage suffers. Everything suffers. That does not mean you should lie to yourself. It means you should discipline your thinking. There's a difference. Discipline is not pretending everything is perfect. Discipline is refusing to exaggerate every problem. Discipline is refusing to turn temporary setbacks into permanent identities. You failed. That does not make you a failure. You struggled. That does not make you weak. You made a mistake. That does not make you incapable. You are not every thought you think. The next battle is emotional reaction. This is where many lives are damaged. Someone criticizes you. You react. Someone insults you. You react. Something unexpected happens. You react. And every reaction hands control to external circumstances. The disciplined person pauses. The undisciplined person reacts. The disciplined person thinks. The undisciplined person explodes. And the disciplined person remains in command. The undisciplined person becomes a victim of emotion. You have a choice. Reaction or response. Most people never learn the difference. Reaction is automatic. Response is deliberate. Reaction is emotional. Response is discipline. Reaction creates regret. Response creates power. That's the key. The strongest person in the room is often not the loudest, not the richest, not the most talented. The strongest person is often the one who remains calm under pressure. Because calmness is control, and control creates freedom. Think about successful leaders. Think about elite performers. Think about people who consistently achieve at a high level. They are not free from fear. They are not free from doubt. They are not free from negative thoughts. They simply refuse to surrender control. That is the difference. They understand something most people never learn. A thought is not a command. A feeling is not an instruction. An emotion is not an order. You don't need their permission. You don't need permission from fear. You don't need permission from doubt. You don't need permission from anxiety. You don't need permission from your own excuses. Action comes first. Permission comes later. Many people spend years waiting to feel confident, years waiting to feel ready, years waiting to feel fearless. And because they wait, nothing changes. The disciplined person acts despite uncertainty. The disciplined person moves despite doubt. The disciplined person works despite fear because they understand a powerful truth. Confidence is often the result of action, not the requirement for action. You have a choice. Wait until your mind feels perfect, or act while your mind remains imperfect. Only one path creates results, the second path, always. Now let's talk about mental chaos. Mental chaos destroys focus. It destroys energy. It destroys momentum. Many people consume endless distractions, endless opinions, endless entertainment, endless noise. Their minds never rest. Their attention is scattered in 100 directions, and then they wonder why they feel overwhelmed. A distracted mind becomes a weak mind. A focused mind becomes a powerful mind. That is why discipline requires mental boundaries. Limit unnecessary distractions. Protect your attention. Guard your focus. Be selective about what enters your mind, because what repeatedly enters your mind eventually shapes your life. It's not about intelligence. It's about discipline. It's not about talent. It's about discipline. It's not about potential. It's about discipline. Mental discipline. The ability to direct your thoughts instead of being controlled by them. The ability to choose focus instead of distraction. The ability to choose action instead of excuses. The ability to choose growth instead of fear. That's the key. So what should you do? Start paying attention. Notice your thoughts. Observe them, question them, challenge them. Do not automatically believe them. The next time fear appears, ask yourself a question. Is this a fact or is this a story? The next time doubt appears, ask yourself another question. Does this thought deserve control over my actions? Most of the time, the answer is no. Then act anyway. That is discipline. That is growth. That is freedom. Remember this. Your mind is a tool, a powerful tool, but a tool should serve you. You should not serve it. When thoughts become masters, freedom disappears. When thoughts become tools, freedom grows. Every area of your life improves when you learn to control yourself instead of your circumstances. And self-control begins with thought control. You are not every thought you think. You never were. You never will be. The question is whether you will finally start acting like it. You have a choice. Control your mind, or allow your mind to control you. One path creates strength. The other creates suffering. One path creates discipline. The other creates dependence. One path creates freedom. The other creates limitation. Choose wisely, because the battle for your life is won or lost inside your mind long before it appears in the outside world. Master your thoughts, and you become harder to defeat. Master your thoughts, and you become harder to distract. Master your thoughts, and you become harder to control. But mental discipline alone is not enough. Sooner or later, life will ask a harder question. Will you act when you don't feel like it? That is where true discipline begins. Let's continue. Chapter 4. Do what must be done, especially when you don't feel like it. Most people allow their feelings to make their decisions, and then they wonder why their lives remain inconsistent. They work when they feel motivated. They exercise when they feel inspired. They focus when they feel energetic. They pursue goals when they feel confident. But feelings are unreliable. They change daily, sometimes hourly, sometimes by the minute. If your actions depend on your feelings, your results will always be unstable. That's the key. Successful people are not successful because they always feel ready. They're successful because they act whether they feel ready or not. They understand something most people never learn. Your feelings are temporary. Your actions become your future. Remember that. Your feelings are temporary. Your actions become your future. A feeling can last a few minutes. An action can shape an entire lifetime. Yet many people continue giving temporary emotions permanent authority over their lives. Think about how often you've said these words. I don't feel like it. 3 simple words, 3 dangerous words. Because hidden inside those words is a decision to let emotion lead and discipline follow. But discipline was never meant to follow emotion. Discipline is meant to lead emotion. You have a choice. You can act according to your feelings, or you can act according to your commitments. Only one path creates freedom. The second path, always. Imagine a soldier in military training. Do you think they train only when they feel motivated? Of course not. Training exists precisely because feelings cannot be trusted. Some days they're exhausted. Some days they're uncomfortable. Some days they want to quit, but they continue. Not because they enjoy suffering, because they understand a simple truth. Performance under pressure comes from habits built before pressure arrives. That's the key. When difficulty appears, you do not rise to the level of your emotions. You fall to the level of your discipline. The same principle applies to every area of life. The professional who consistently excels at work, the athlete who consistently performs, the entrepreneur who consistently executes, the parent who consistently shows up, the leader who consistently remains calm. They all share something in common. They do what must be done, especially when they don't feel like it. Your feelings are temporary. Your actions become your future. Many people misunderstand discipline. They think discipline means becoming emotionless. It does not. Discipline does not eliminate emotions. Discipline prevents emotions from controlling decisions. There is a difference. You can feel tired and still work. You can feel afraid and still act. You can feel uncertain and still move forward. You can feel discouraged and still continue. That is real strength. Not the absence of emotion, the mastery of emotion. You don't need their permission. You don't need permission from fear. You don't need permission from fatigue. You don't need permission from doubt. You don't need permission from your feelings. You need action. That's the key. Think about physical fitness. Nobody wakes up every morning excited to train. Nobody feels motivated every single day. But results belong to those who show up consistently, not occasionally, consistently. The person who exercises only when motivated will always lose to the person who exercises because it is scheduled. The person who reads only when inspired will lose to the person who reads because it is a habit. The person who works only when energized will lose to the person who works because it is required. Consistency beats intensity every time because consistency survives emotional fluctuations. Intensity rarely does. Your feelings are temporary. Your actions become your future. Now, let's be honest. Many people spend years waiting to feel confident, waiting to feel motivated, waiting to feel prepared, waiting to feel ready. But readiness is often created through action, not before action. The person who waits for confidence rarely gains it. The person who acts despite uncertainty develops confidence naturally. Confidence is a reward, not a prerequisite. You have a choice. Wait until you feel ready, or become ready through action. Most people choose the first path. Disciplined people choose the second, and their lives reflect that decision. Consider the small daily moments. The alarm clock rings. You don't feel like getting up. The work needs to be done. You don't feel like focusing. The difficult conversation needs to happen. You don't feel like having it. The workout is scheduled. You don't feel like training. These moments seem insignificant. They are not. These moments are where identity is built. Every time you act despite resistance, you strengthen discipline. Every time you surrender to resistance, you strengthen weakness. Your future is being shaped in those moments, not during dramatic events, during ordinary decisions. That's the key. The world often celebrates talent, but talent without discipline is fragile. The world often celebrates intelligence, but intelligence without discipline is wasted. The world often celebrates potential, but potential without discipline remains unrealized. It is not about talent. It is about discipline. It is not about intelligence. It is about discipline. It is not about potential. It is about discipline. The person who repeatedly does what must be done eventually surpasses the person who relies on feelings. Every single time. That is why discipline creates freedom, because disciplined action compounds. Small actions become habits. Habits become character. Character becomes destiny. One disciplined day may seem insignificant. 1,000 disciplined days become a different life. Remember that. Many people focus too much on outcomes. They obsess over results, but results are delayed. Discipline operates before results appear. You work before success. You train before strength. You save before wealth. You practice before mastery. The reward comes later. The action comes first. That's the key. Stop asking yourself how you feel. Start asking yourself what must be done. That question changes everything, because feelings fluctuate, responsibilities remain, feelings disappear, consequences remain, emotions pass, results remain. Your feelings are temporary. Your actions become your future. So what should you do? Create non-negotiables. Decide in advance. Remove unnecessary decisions. If you plan to work, work. If you plan to train, train. If you plan to study, study. No debate, no bargaining, no emotional voting process. Just execution. Because every time you honor a commitment despite resistance, you become stronger. Not physically, not financially, internally. And internal strength changes everything. The strongest people are not those who always feel motivated. The strongest people are those who continue when motivation disappears. That is discipline. That is power. That is freedom. Every area of your life improves when action becomes more important than emotion. Because circumstances will never be perfect. Feelings will never be perfect. Conditions will never be perfect. But disciplined action can still happen. Today, right now, you have a choice. Follow your feelings or follow your commitments. One path creates excuses, the other creates results. One path creates weakness, the other creates strength. One path creates regret, the other creates freedom. Choose wisely, because your future is not being built by how you feel. It is being built by what you do. As your feelings are temporary, your actions become your future. Master that lesson, and you gain one of the most powerful advantages in life. But there is another trap that destroys more dreams than fear, doubt, or discomfort combined. A trap that quietly steals years from people's lives. Let's continue. Chapter 5, the price of procrastination is your future. Most people think procrastination is a time problem. It isn't. Most people think procrastination is laziness. It isn't. Procrastination is something far more dangerous. It is self-betrayal delayed over time. That's the key. Every time you postpone what you know should be done, you make a silent agreement with mediocrity. You tell yourself it is only one day, only one delay, only one excuse, only one missed opportunity. But life does not measure consequences one decision at a time. Life measures patterns. And procrastination is one of the most destructive patterns a person can develop. Because procrastination rarely announces itself. It arrives disguised as logic. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow. You tell yourself you'll wait until conditions improve. You tell yourself you'll act when you're more prepared, more confident, more motivated, more ready. But tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. Next month becomes next year. And eventually, years disappear. Later is the most expensive word in the world. Remember that. Later is the most expensive word in the world. The cost is rarely visible immediately. That is why procrastination is so dangerous. The bill arrives long after the decision. The missed workout becomes declining health. The delayed investment becomes lost wealth. The unfinished project becomes a missed opportunity. The postponed conversation becomes a damaged relationship. The ignored dream becomes lifelong regret. All because of one word, later. You have a choice, act now, or pay later. Those are the only options. Many people believe they have unlimited time. They live as though opportunities will always return, as though energy will always remain, as though circumstances will always allow another chance. But life does not work that way. Time is moving whether you move or not. The clock does not pause while you hesitate. The years do not slow down while you procrastinate. Your future is being created right now. Not tomorrow, not next month, not someday, right now. That's the key. Think about someone who wants to improve their health. They know what to do. Exercise, eat better, sleep better, move more. But instead of starting today, they postpone. One day becomes 1 week. 1 week becomes 1 year. Then suddenly they look in the mirror and wonder what happened. Nothing dramatic happened. Small delays happened. Repeatedly. That is how most people lose. Not through one massive failure, through thousands of small postponements. The same thing happens financially. Someone wants to save money, invest, build stability, create freedom. But they wait. There's always another excuse, another reason, another justification. Years later, they discover a painful truth. Time was more important than timing. The greatest advantage was not intelligence, not luck, not talent. It was simply starting earlier. Later is the most expensive word in the world. The same principle applies to personal growth. Many people want to become stronger, more disciplined, more confident, more capable, but they keep waiting for the perfect moment. The problem is that perfect moments do not exist. Perfect moments are often invented by people who fear action. You don't need their permission. You don't need permission from circumstances. You don't need permission from fear. You don't need permission from uncertainty. You need execution. Successful people understand this. They do not wait until everything feels right. They start, then they adjust, then they improve, then they continue. Most people reverse the process. They wait, then they wait more. And they wonder why nothing changes. Action creates clarity. Waiting creates confusion. That's the key. Many people procrastinate because they fear failure. But consider something important. Failure teaches. Procrastination teaches nothing. Failure creates experience. Procrastination creates regret. Failure can be corrected. Procrastination steals opportunities that may never return. You have a choice: temporary discomfort or permanent wondering, temporary effort or permanent regret. The disciplined person understands this trade, and because they understand it, they act, even imperfectly, even awkwardly, even before they feel ready. Because movement creates momentum, momentum creates confidence, confidence creates progress, and progress creates freedom. One of the biggest lies people tell themselves is this: I'll do it when I feel motivated. Motivation is unreliable. Discipline is dependable. Motivation visits. Discipline stays. Motivation appears and disappears. Discipline remains when emotions leave. That is why disciplined people consistently outperform motivated people. They are not waiting. They are working. It is not about motivation. It is about discipline. It is not about inspiration. It is about discipline. It is not about perfect timing. It is about discipline. The most successful people often share one trait: speed of execution. They make decisions, then they act. Not recklessly, not carelessly, but decisively. While others are debating, they are moving. While others are hesitating, they are progressing. While others are waiting for certainty, they are building experience. And that difference compounds over time. A week becomes a month becomes a year becomes a decade. The gap becomes enormous, not because they were better, because they started. That's the key. Now consider your own life. What have you been postponing? What conversation needs to happen? What goal needs to begin? What habit needs to change? What opportunity needs to be pursued? Be honest. You already know the answer. Most people do. The problem is not awareness. The problem is action. You know what needs to be done. Now the question becomes whether you will do it. You have a choice. Continue postponing or begin today, not next Monday, not next month, not after circumstances improve. Today, because every day you delay, the cost increases. Every day you wait, momentum decreases. Every day you hesitate, confidence weakens. And every day you act, the opposite occurs. Momentum grows, confidence grows, progress grows, freedom grows. That is how discipline works. Not through dramatic moments, through immediate execution. The disciplined person develops a simple habit. When something important needs to be done, they begin. Not perfectly, not brilliantly, not flawlessly, they begin. Because beginning is often the hardest part. Once motion exists, progress becomes easier. But without motion, nothing changes. Remember this: your future is not being stolen by a single catastrophic decision. It is being shaped by small daily actions, or small daily delays. One creates growth, the other creates regret. Later is the most expensive word in the world. Never forget that. Every postponed responsibility carries interest. Every delayed opportunity accumulates cost. Every avoided action creates consequences. And eventually, the future presents the bill. The disciplined person pays effort now. The undisciplined person pays regret later. You have a choice. Which price will you pay? Because every area of your life improves when action replaces delay, when execution replaces excuses, when discipline replaces procrastination. That is where freedom begins. Not someday. Today, right now. The future belongs to people who act before they feel ready. The future belongs to people who move before conditions are perfect. The future belongs to people who understand that action is always more valuable than delay. Master that lesson, and you reclaim one of the most valuable resources you possess: time. But managing time is not enough. You must also build a structure that keeps discipline alive even when motivation disappears. Because relying on willpower alone is a losing strategy. Let's continue. Chapter 6. Build systems that make success inevitable. Most people overestimate willpower. And because they overestimate it, they repeatedly fail. They believe success depends on motivation. They believe discipline depends on feeling strong. They believe consistency depends on determination. For a short period of time, that may work. For a lifetime, it will not. Because motivation fades, energy fluctuates, emotions change. Life becomes complicated, and eventually willpower runs out. That's the key. The people who achieve lasting success do not rely on willpower. They rely on systems. A system does not care how you feel. A system does not require motivation. A system continues working even when emotions disappear. That is why systems are powerful. And that is why so many people ignore them. They focus on goals, but goals are not enough. A goal tells you where you want to go. A system determines whether you get there. Remember this: you do not rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. Say it again: you do not rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. The person who wants to get healthy has a goal. The person who schedules workouts, prepares meals, and follows a routine has a system. The person who wants financial freedom has a goal. The person who automatically saves money every month has a system. The person who wants success has a goal. The person who consistently follows productive habits has a system. Goals inspire. Systems transform. That's the key. Many people spend January setting ambitious goals. Then they spend February abandoning them. Not because the goals were bad, because the systems were missing. A goal without a system is a wish. A system turns a wish into reality. You have a choice. You can depend on motivation, or you can depend on structure. One disappears, the other remains. Think about brushing your teeth. You do not need motivation to do it. You do not wake up every morning and give yourself a motivational speech. You do it because it is a system, a habit, a routine, something that happens automatically. Imagine if your most important goals operated the same way. Imagine if exercise was automatic, reading was automatic, saving money was automatic, focused work was automatic. How much different would your life become? The answer is obvious. Completely different. That is the power of systems. Successful people understand something that unsuccessful people often miss. Decision fatigue is real. Every decision consumes energy. Every choice consumes focus. The more decisions you make, the more likely you are to make poor ones later. That is why disciplined people reduce unnecessary decisions. They create routines. They create structures. They create habits. They automate what matters. That's the key. Consider the morning routine. Many people begin each day reacting, checking notifications, scrolling through distractions, allowing circumstances to dictate their attention. Then they wonder why the day feels chaotic. The disciplined person does something different. They follow a system. They know what happens first. They know what happens next. They know what priorities matter. The day begins with intention rather than reaction. And because of that, the entire day changes. You don't need their permission. You do not need permission from your mood. You do not need permission from your circumstances. You do not need permission from motivation. A good system removes the need for permission. The system decides. You execute. That is freedom. Many people mistakenly believe systems are restrictive. They believe routines limit creativity. They believe structure reduces freedom. The opposite is true. Structure creates freedom. Systems create freedom. Habits create freedom. Because when important behaviors become automatic, your mind becomes available for bigger challenges. That's the key. Think about elite athletes. Their success is not built on occasional effort. It is built on daily systems, training schedules, recovery routines, nutrition plans, practice structures. Everything is designed to support performance. They do not wake up each morning wondering what they should do. The system already knows. All they have to do is follow it. The same principle applies to business. The same principle applies to health. The same principle applies to personal growth. Success becomes more predictable when systems become stronger. You do not rise to your goals, you fall to your systems. Now let's talk about environment. Your environment is one of the most powerful systems you possess. Most people underestimate this. They rely entirely on self-control. But self-control is easier when the environment supports it. If unhealthy food surrounds you, discipline becomes harder. If distractions surround you, focus becomes harder. If negativity surrounds you, optimism becomes harder. Your environment influences your behavior. That is reality. The disciplined person designs an environment that supports success, not failure. You have a choice. Build an environment that works for you, or continue fighting an environment that works against you. One path is smarter. The other is exhausting. Successful people understand this. They remove friction from good habits. They add friction to bad habits. They make productive behaviors easier. They make destructive behaviors harder. That is a system, and systems outperform willpower every time. Now consider your daily habits. Many people search for dramatic breakthroughs, but transformation rarely comes from dramatic breakthroughs. It comes from small, repeated actions, daily actions, consistent actions, boring actions, the actions nobody celebrates. Reading 10 pages, walking 30 minutes, saving a small amount of money, practicing a skill, showing up every day. These actions seem insignificant, but over time they become extraordinary because consistency compounds. That's the key. One workout changes little. 100 workouts change everything. One productive day changes little. 1,000 productive days create a remarkable life. Systems create consistency. Consistency creates results. Results create freedom. It is not about intensity. It is about discipline. It is not about motivation. It is about discipline. It is not about occasional effort. It is about discipline. The people who succeed long-term are often not the most talented. They are not always the smartest. They are not always the most gifted. They are often the people with the strongest systems. The people who continue when motivation disappears. The people who execute when emotions fluctuate. The people who trust structure more than feelings. That is why systems matter. That is why systems win. So what should you do? Start simple. Do not create 10 new habits. Create one. Do not redesign your entire life overnight. Improve one routine, build one system, strengthen one structure, then repeat. Success is rarely built through complexity. It is built through consistency, and consistency is created through systems. Remember this, every area of your life improves when your actions become less dependent on emotion and more dependent on structure. The disciplined person does not hope for success. They build systems that make success more likely. Day after day, month after month, year after year, you have a choice. Continue relying on willpower, or build systems that continue working when willpower disappears. One creates frustration, the other creates freedom. One creates inconsistency, the other creates results. One creates excuses, the other creates progress. Choose wisely, because the quality of your systems eventually becomes the quality of your life. You do not rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. Master that lesson, and discipline becomes easier. But even the strongest systems will eventually face a challenge. Life will test your emotions. People will test your patience. Circumstances will test your composure. And in those moments, another skill becomes essential: the ability to remain in control when emotions demand control. Let's continue. Chapter 7. Master your emotions before they master you. There is a difference between feeling an emotion and obeying an emotion. Most people never learn that difference. And because they never learn it, their emotions control their lives. A bad mood controls their productivity. A criticism controls their confidence. A setback controls their motivation. A rejection controls their future. An uncertainty controls their decisions. And little by little, they surrender control of their lives to temporary emotional states. That is not freedom. That is dependence. That's the key. Emotions are powerful, but they were never meant to be leaders. They were meant to be signals, information, feedback, nothing more. The moment emotions become leaders, discipline disappears. And when discipline disappears, freedom disappears with it. You have a choice. You can experience emotions, or you can be ruled by emotions. Those are not the same thing. The disciplined person feels anger but remains composed. The undisciplined person feels anger and immediately reacts. The disciplined person feels fear and still acts. The undisciplined person feels fear and retreats. The disciplined person feels disappointment and continues moving forward. The undisciplined person stops completely. That difference changes everything. Calm is power. Reaction is weakness. Remember that. Calm is power. Reaction is weakness. Most of the damage people create in their lives happens in moments of emotional reaction. A few seconds of anger, a few minutes of frustration, a brief moment of insecurity, and suddenly words are spoken that cannot be taken back. Opportunities are lost, relationships are damaged, trust is broken. Not because the person lacked intelligence, not because the person lacked talent, because the person lacked emotional discipline. It is not about intelligence. It is about discipline. It is not about potential. It is about discipline. It is not about emotion. It is about discipline. Emotional discipline. The ability to remain in control when your emotions demand control. That's the key. Think about criticism. Most people fear criticism, not because criticism is painful, because criticism triggers emotion. Someone questions them. Someone disagrees with them. Someone points out a flaw. Immediately, the emotional reaction begins. Defensiveness, anger, embarrassment, resentment. And in that emotional state, growth becomes impossible. The disciplined person handles criticism differently. They pause. They listen. They evaluate. They separate emotion from information. If the criticism is useful, they learn. If the criticism is useless, they move on. Either way, they remain in control. You don't need their permission. You don't need permission from critics. You don't need permission from doubters. You don't need permission from people who misunderstand you. You need focus. You need discipline. You need the ability to stay committed to your purpose regardless of external opinions. Calm is power. Reaction is weakness. Now consider rejection. Rejection stops countless people from pursuing what they want. Not because rejection is fatal, because rejection is emotional. A business proposal gets rejected. An application gets rejected. An idea gets rejected. A relationship ends. And immediately people begin questioning themselves, their worth, their ability, their future. But rejection is information, not identity. That's the key. Many successful people experience repeated rejection before achieving success. The difference is simple. They refused to let rejection become their identity. They experienced it. They learned from it. Then they continued. The undisciplined person says, I was rejected, so I should stop. The disciplined person says, I was rejected, so I should improve. One response creates growth. The other creates stagnation. You have a choice. Now let's talk about uncertainty. Life is uncertain. It always will be. No one knows exactly what will happen next month, next year, or even tomorrow. Yet many people become emotionally paralyzed by uncertainty. They need guarantees before acting. They need certainty before committing. They need proof before believing. As a result, they spend their lives waiting. The disciplined person understands something different. Certainty is not required. Action is required. They move forward despite uncertainty, not because they know the outcome, because they know hesitation creates nothing. That's the key. Calm is power. Reaction is weakness. The same principle applies to setbacks. Everyone experiences setbacks. Everyone. Plans fail. Mistakes happen. Unexpected obstacles appear. No one escapes that reality. The question is not whether setbacks will occur. The question is how you respond when they do. The emotionally undisciplined person interprets setbacks as proof they should quit. The disciplined person interprets setbacks as part of the process. The first person stops. The second person adapts. And adaptation is where growth happens. The strongest people are not people who avoid setbacks. They are people who recover from setbacks quickly, because recovery requires emotional control. Not emotional perfection, emotional control. There's a difference. You do not need to eliminate emotions. You need to manage them. You need to understand them. You need to prevent them from making decisions on your behalf. That's the key. Many people spend years trying to control the world around them. They try to control circumstances. They try to control people. They try to control outcomes. But the most important thing to control has always been yourself. Your reactions, your responses, your emotions, your focus. That is where real power lives, not outside of you, inside of you. You have a choice. React or respond. React or reflect. React or remain calm. The choice repeats itself every day, and every time you choose calm, you become stronger. Every time you choose discipline, you become stronger. Every time you choose composure, you become stronger. Strength is built in those moments, not in comfort, not in ease, in emotional challenge. That is why emotional discipline is one of the highest forms of discipline. Anyone can stay calm when everything is going well. The real test comes when life becomes difficult. The real test comes when emotions become intense. The real test comes when circumstances become uncomfortable. Can you remain focused? Can you remain composed? Can you remain disciplined? That is where freedom is won. Calm is power. Reaction is weakness. Never forget that. The person who masters emotions becomes difficult to manipulate, difficult to distract, difficult to discourage, difficult to defeat. Because their stability comes from within, not from external circumstances, not from approval, not from comfort, from discipline. And discipline creates freedom. Every area of your life improves when your emotions stop controlling your decisions. Your relationships improve. Your work improves. Your confidence improves. Your leadership improves. Your future improves. Because you stop living reactively. You start living intentionally. That is power. That is strength. That is freedom. You have a choice. Let emotions lead, or let discipline lead. One creates chaos, the other creates control. One creates regret, the other creates progress. One creates weakness, the other creates freedom. Choose wisely, because life will continue testing your emotions. The question is whether your emotions will continue controlling you. Master your emotions before they master you, and you will possess a form of strength that few people ever develop. But emotional control alone is not enough. Eventually, discipline must become part of your identity. It must become something deeper than behavior, something deeper than habit. It must become a promise you keep to yourself. Let's continue. Chapter 8, Become the person who keeps his word. There is one relationship that will determine the quality of your entire life. It is not your relationship with money. It is not your relationship with success. It is not even your relationship with other people. It is your relationship with yourself. That's the key. Most people spend years trying to earn the trust of others. They want respect, approval, recognition, validation. But they ignore a more important question. Do they trust themselves? Because if you cannot trust yourself, everything becomes harder. Confidence becomes fragile. Discipline becomes inconsistent. Goals become difficult to pursue. Freedom becomes impossible to sustain. The truth is simple. Self-respect is earned, and self-respect is built one promise at a time. Every promise you keep strengthens your identity. Every promise you break weakens it. Trust yourself because you have earned it. Remember that. Trust yourself because you have earned it. Many people misunderstand confidence. They think confidence comes from positive thinking. It doesn't. They think confidence comes from repeating affirmations. It doesn't. They think confidence comes from convincing themselves they are capable. Not exactly. Real confidence comes from evidence. Evidence that you do what you say you will do. Evidence that your actions match your words. Evidence that you can rely on yourself. That is where genuine confidence is born. That's the key. Imagine two people. The first person constantly makes promises. They promise to wake up early. They promise to exercise. They promise to save money. They promise to pursue their goals, but they rarely follow through. Over time, what happens? They begin doubting themselves. Not consciously at first, but gradually, because every broken promise sends a message. A message that says, my words cannot be trusted. Now imagine the second person. They make fewer promises, but they keep them consistently, repeatedly, relentlessly. What happens? Trust grows, confidence grows, self-respect grows, because the evidence keeps accumulating. Trust yourself because you have earned it. You have a choice. Become someone who talks or become someone who follows through. One creates frustration, the other creates strength. One creates excuses, the other creates confidence. Many people are waiting to feel confident before they act. That's backwards. Action creates confidence. Commitment creates confidence. Reliability creates confidence. The person who keeps his word develops an inner certainty that cannot be faked because they know something. They know they can depend on themselves. And that knowledge changes everything. You don't need their permission. You don't need permission from doubters. You don't need permission from critics. You don't need permission from people who question your potential. When you trust yourself, external opinions lose power because your confidence no longer depends on other people. It depends on your own integrity. That's the key. Consider the promises people make every year. New goals, new habits, new commitments. The intention is genuine. The desire is real. But desire alone changes nothing. The promise must be honored. And every time it is not honored, something valuable is lost. Not just progress, trust, internal trust. The trust between who you are and who you claim you want to become. That trust matters more than most people realize. Because once self-trust is damaged, hesitation increases, doubt increases, fear increases. The mind begins asking dangerous questions. Can I really do this? Will I actually follow through? Why should I believe myself this time? Those questions appear because trust has been weakened. Not destroyed, but weakened. The solution is not motivation. The solution is evidence. Small evidence, repeated evidence, daily evidence. Trust yourself because you have earned it. That's the key. Let's talk about reliability. Most people admire reliable people. People who show up, people who keep commitments, people who do what they say. Why? Because reliability creates certainty. Reliability creates stability. Reliability creates trust. Now ask yourself a difficult question. Are you reliable with yourself? Not with other people. With yourself. When you say you will wake up early, do you? When you say you will exercise, do you? When you say you will focus, do you? When you say you will stop making excuses, do you? Be honest. Because honesty is where transformation begins. You have a choice. Continue breaking promises or start rebuilding trust. One decision at a time. One action at a time. One commitment at a time. The process is simple. Not easy, but simple. Stop making grand promises. Start making small promises. And then keep them every single time. If you promise 10 minutes of reading, do it. If you promise a short workout, do it. If you promise focused work, do it. Do not underestimate small victories. Small victories rebuild trust, and trust compounds, just like discipline, just like habits, just like success. That's the key. Many people want extraordinary confidence, but they refuse to perform ordinary commitments. That is impossible. Extraordinary confidence is built on ordinary reliability. The strongest people are often not the most talented. They are the most dependable, dependable with their habits, dependable with their standards, dependable with their promises, dependable with themselves. It is not about talent. It is about discipline. It is not about charisma. It is about discipline. It is not about potential. It is about discipline. Discipline expressed through integrity. Discipline expressed through consistency. Discipline expressed through keeping your word. Trust yourself because you have earned it. Now consider what happens when life becomes difficult. Challenges appear, motivation disappears, results slow down, disappointment arrives. At that moment, self-trust becomes critical. Because if you trust yourself, you continue. If you trust yourself, you adapt. If you trust yourself, you persist. Not because success is guaranteed. Because you know you can rely on your own commitment. That is power, real power. Not power over others, power over yourself. The ability to say something and then do it. The ability to make a commitment and then honor it. The ability to maintain integrity when nobody is watching. That is freedom. Every area of your life improves when your words and actions become aligned. Relationships improve because people trust you. Opportunities improve because people depend on you. Confidence improves because you depend on yourself. Everything improves because trust grows, and trust changes identity. Eventually, something remarkable happens. You stop seeing discipline as something you do. You start seeing discipline as who you are. That is the transformation. The disciplined person does not constantly ask whether they will follow through. Following through becomes automatic because integrity becomes identity. That's the key. Trust yourself because you have earned it. Earn it through action. Earn it through consistency. Earn it through discipline. Not once, not occasionally, repeatedly, day after day, month after month, year after year. You have a choice. Become someone whose words mean nothing, or become someone whose word is enough. One path creates doubt. The other creates confidence. One path creates weakness. The other creates strength. One path creates dependence. The other creates freedom. Choose wisely, because the person you become is shaped by the promises you keep and the promises you break. Master this lesson, and you gain something few people possess, the ability to trust yourself completely. But there is one final challenge that separates disciplined people from everyone else: the ability to remain consistent when nothing exciting is happening, when nobody's watching, when progress feels invisible, when the days become ordinary. Let's continue. Chapter 9, Win the Boring Days. Most people are fascinated by dramatic moments: the championship victory, the breakthrough success, the promotion, the transformation, the achievement everyone notices. But what most people fail to understand is this: success is rarely created during dramatic moments. Success is created long before those moments arrive, in quiet moments, ordinary moments, boring moments. That's the key. The world celebrates the result, but the result is only the visible portion of the story. The real story happened earlier: the early mornings, the repetitive practice, the disciplined routines, the countless days when nothing exciting happened. Champions are built on ordinary days. Remember that. Champions are built on ordinary days. Most people want extraordinary outcomes, but very few people are willing to master ordinary behaviors. They want the reward. Without the repetition, they want the result. Without the routine, they want success. Without consistency, that is why so many people remain stuck. Because greatness is often hidden inside boring actions. The actions that nobody applauds. The actions that nobody notices. The actions that nobody talks about. Yet those actions create everything. You have a choice. Fall in love with results or fall in love with the process. One creates frustration. The other creates progress. The disciplined person understands this. They stop chasing excitement. They start chasing consistency. Because consistency is what creates momentum, and momentum creates results. That's the key. Think about an athlete preparing for competition. The crowd sees the performance. The crowd sees the victory, or the crowd sees the celebration. But the crowd does not see the thousands of repetitions, the practice sessions, the drills, the conditioning, the discipline, the ordinary days. Those days created the performance, not the other way around. Champions are built on ordinary days. The same principle applies to every area of life. Financial success is built on ordinary days. Health is built on ordinary days. Confidence is built on ordinary days. Strong relationships are built on ordinary days. Everything valuable is built through repetition, not excitement, repetition. That's the key. Many people quit because progress feels invisible. They start exercising. Nothing dramatic happens. They start reading. Nothing dramatic happens. They start building a business. Nothing dramatic happens. They start developing discipline. Nothing dramatic happens. And because results are delayed, they lose patience. That is a mistake, a costly mistake, because most meaningful growth is invisible at first. A tree grows underground before it grows above ground. The roots develop before the results appear. The same is true for success. The same is true for discipline. The same is true for freedom. You must learn to trust the process before the evidence becomes obvious. You don't need their permission. You don't need permission from immediate results. You don't need permission from applause. You don't need permission from recognition. You need commitment. You need consistency. You need patience. Because discipline often works in silence before it works in public. That's the key. Think about someone learning a new skill. For weeks, improvement seems small. For months, progress seems slow. Then eventually something changes. The accumulated effort begins to show. The skill improves. The confidence grows. The results become visible. People call it talent. People call it natural ability. But what they are really seeing is accumulated consistency. Years of ordinary days. Years of repetition. Years of discipline. Champions are built on ordinary days. Most people underestimate the power of showing up. Not once, repeatedly. Anyone can have a great day. Anyone can feel motivated occasionally. Anyone can work hard for a short period. The challenge is consistency. Can you show up tomorrow? Can you show up next week? Can you show up next month? Can you continue when enthusiasm disappears? That is where discipline separates itself from motivation. Motivation creates starts. Discipline creates finishes. That's the key. Many people spend too much time searching for shortcuts. They want faster success, faster growth, faster results, faster transformation. But the most reliable path is often the least exciting path. The path of consistency, the path of patience, the path of repetition, the path of showing up again and again and again until the ordinary becomes extraordinary. You have a choice. Seek excitement or seek consistency. One feels good temporarily, the other changes your life permanently. The disciplined person understands that boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is often the path. The workout feels repetitive. Do it anyway. The reading feels repetitive. Do it anyway. The practice feels repetitive. Do it anyway. The habit feels repetitive. Do it anyway. Because repetition creates mastery, and mastery creates freedom. That's the key. It is not about intensity. It is about discipline. It is not about excitement. It is about discipline. It is not about occasional effort. It is about discipline. Discipline expressed consistently, day after day, week after week, year after year. That is how remarkable lives are built, one ordinary day at a time. Many people are waiting for a breakthrough, but breakthroughs are often the result of accumulated ordinary days. The breakthrough is visible. The preparation is invisible. People notice the success. They ignore the years of repetition that produced it. Do not make that mistake. Respect the process. Respect the repetition. Respect the ordinary days, because they are creating your future whether you realize it or not. Champions are built on ordinary days. Never forget that. The disciplined person wins because they continue when others stop. When motivation disappears, they continue. When progress slows, they continue. When boredom arrives, they continue. When nobody is watching, they continue. That is why they eventually separate themselves from the crowd. Not because they are extraordinary, because they mastered ordinary actions. Repeatedly, you have a choice. Abandon the process because it feels boring, or trust the process because it creates results. One creates regret, the other creates freedom. One creates excuses, the other creates achievement. One creates weakness, the other creates strength. Choose wisely, because your future is not being built during dramatic moments. It is being built during ordinary moments. The moments nobody sees, the moments nobody celebrates, the moments nobody remembers. Those moments matter more than most people realize. Every area of your life improves when you learn to win the boring days. Because winning the boring days means winning consistency. Winning consistency means winning discipline. And winning discipline means winning freedom. Champions are built on ordinary days. So are strong minds, strong bodies, strong relationships, strong futures. Master that lesson, and you will understand something that most people never do. The extraordinary is created by the ordinary, repeated long enough. But there is one final truth that ties every lesson in this audiobook together. One principle that explains why discipline matters so much. One principle that transforms sacrifice into freedom. Let's continue. Chapter 10. Discipline is freedom. At first, discipline feels restrictive. It feels difficult. It feels demanding. It feels like sacrifice. That is why so many people avoid it. They believe discipline limits freedom. They believe discipline takes freedom away. But they have misunderstood the entire concept, because the truth is exactly the opposite. Discipline does not destroy freedom. Discipline creates freedom. That's the key. The person who cannot control himself is never truly free. And think about that. If you cannot control your spending, are you financially free? If you cannot control your habits, are you physically free? If you cannot control your emotions, are you emotionally free? If you cannot control your attention, are you mentally free? Of course not. Dependence is not freedom. Impulse is not freedom. Weakness is not freedom. Freedom begins with self-mastery, and self-mastery begins with discipline. The disciplined life becomes the free life. Remember that. The disciplined life becomes the free life. Many people chase freedom in the wrong places. They chase comfort, convenience, entertainment, immediate pleasure, instant gratification. But these things often create dependence rather than freedom. The person who cannot stop spending becomes trapped by debt. The person who cannot stop consuming becomes trapped by distraction. The person who cannot control impulses becomes trapped by consequences. And then they wonder where their freedom went. It never disappeared. It was traded. Traded for temporary pleasure, traded for short-term comfort, traded for immediate gratification. That's the key. Freedom is rarely lost all at once. It is surrendered gradually. One undisciplined decision at a time. One excuse at a time. One compromise at a time. One delay at a time. And the opposite is also true. Freedom is built gradually. One disciplined action at a time. One responsible choice at a time. One commitment honored at a time. One promise kept at a time. That is how freedom grows. You have a choice. Build freedom or surrender freedom. The decision is made every day. Let's talk about financial freedom. Most people want it. Few people earn it. Why? Because financial freedom is not created by income alone. It is created by discipline. The disciplined person spends less than they earn. The disciplined person thinks long-term. The disciplined person delays gratification. The disciplined person makes decisions that future freedom will appreciate. At first, that feels restrictive. At first, it feels like sacrifice. But eventually, something happens. The sacrifice creates options. The options create freedom. The disciplined life becomes the free life. Now think about physical freedom. Many people do not realize how much freedom exists inside health. The ability to move, the ability to perform, the ability to live without constant limitations. That freedom is not accidental. It is earned through disciplined habits, through exercise, through nutrition, through consistency. The person who repeatedly chooses discipline gains energy, strength, vitality, freedom. The person who repeatedly chooses comfort often gains the opposite. That is reality, not punishment. Reality, you have a choice: temporary comfort or long-term freedom, temporary pleasure or lasting capability. One decision repeated enough times becomes your future. That's the key. Now consider emotional freedom. This is one of the greatest freedoms a person can possess. The freedom to remain calm under pressure, the freedom to remain focused during uncertainty, the freedom to continue moving forward despite fear, the freedom to remain stable when circumstances become unstable. That freedom comes from emotional discipline, not emotional luck, not emotional perfection, emotional discipline. The person who controls emotions becomes difficult to manipulate, difficult to distract, difficult to discourage. And that is real power. The disciplined life becomes the free life. Think back to everything you have learned. You stop negotiating with yourself. You learn that comfort often disguises itself as safety. You learn to control your mind. You learn to act despite feelings. You learn the cost of procrastination. You learn the power of systems. You learned emotional discipline. You learn to keep your word. You learn to win the boring days. Every lesson pointed toward the same destination. Freedom. Not freedom through luck. Not freedom through circumstances. Freedom through self-mastery. That's the key. Most people spend their lives trying to control external conditions. More money, better opportunities. Different circumstances. Different people. But the most powerful form of control has always been internal. Control yourself, and your relationship with life changes. Control yourself, and your confidence changes. Control yourself, and your future changes. Everything changes, because every area of your life improves when you learn to control yourself instead of your circumstances. You don't need their permission. You do not need permission from the world to become disciplined. You do not need permission from your past. You do not need permission from fear. You do not need permission from failure. You do not need permission from anyone. You need a decision to stop waiting, a decision to stop negotiating, a decision to stop making excuses, a decision to become responsible for your own life. That decision changes everything. You have a choice every day, every hour, sometimes every minute. Discipline or distraction, discipline or comfort, discipline or excuses, discipline or regret. The choice never disappears, and neither do the consequences. Many people see discipline as a burden. The disciplined person sees discipline as an investment in freedom, an investment in confidence, an investment in strength, an investment in peace, because discipline pays dividends for the rest of your life. That's the key. The disciplined person wakes up with options. The disciplined person moves through life with confidence. The disciplined person faces adversity with resilience. The disciplined person remains strong when others collapse, not because they are special, because they train themselves, day after day, choice after choice, action after action, until discipline became identity, and identity became freedom. The disciplined life becomes the free life. Never forget that. Not occasionally, not sometimes, always. Discipline creates freedom in your finances, freedom in your health, freedom in your emotions, freedom in your relationships, freedom in your future. Everything improves when self-mastery improves. That is the ultimate lesson. That is the truth hidden behind every chapter. Freedom is not found. Freedom is built. And the building process is discipline. You have a choice. Remain a servant to impulse, or become the master of yourself. Remain controlled by circumstances, or become controlled by principles. Remain trapped by comfort, or become liberated through discipline. One path is easy now and difficult later. The other path is difficult now and powerful later. Choose wisely, because your future is being built by the choices you make today. And the greatest freedom you will ever experience is the freedom that comes from knowing you are in control of yourself. The disciplined life becomes the free life, and that is where true freedom begins. Now you understand the truth. Freedom is not doing whatever you want whenever you want. Freedom is becoming the kind of person who can control himself when life becomes difficult. You learn that comfort is costly. You learn that procrastination steals futures. You learn that emotions cannot be allowed to run your life. You learn that systems beat motivation, consistency beats intensity, and action beats intention. Every chapter led to the same lesson. Master yourself. Master your habits. Master your thoughts. Master your emotions. Master your promises. Because the person who cannot control himself will always be controlled by something else. Fear, comfort, distraction, weakness, or circumstance. But the person who develops discipline gains something rare: confidence, strength, peace, freedom. So here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, stop waiting to feel motivated. Choose one difficult thing you have been avoiding and do it every single day without exception. No excuses, no negotiations, no delays. Because your future is being built right now. And the life you want begins the moment you decide to master yourself before it's too late.